Hi, everyone. So, final presentation. Just a word about those videos. If you wanted to look at more of them, they're called Stretches for Your Daily Life, and they're on the NAS website section. But final presentation, we have Emily, who is very sort of appropriately for the last presentation of the day, going to be talking about sleeping well with Axial SpA. So over to you, Emily.
Hello, hi. So yeah, kind of the graveyard shift really, doing a presentation about sleep as the last one. So hopefully I'll try and keep you awake a little bit. It'll be quite brief. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a physio in Bath, and until quite recently I worked at the Royal National Hospital for Rheumatic Diseases in Bath, running the 2-week residential programme we've got for people with axial spondyloarthritis. Part of that was teaching ways to sort of manage fatigue and sleep, and obviously lots of exercise as well. So also, I was involved in various bits of research around sleep and axial spondyloarthritis. So this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour about all of that in 15 minutes. So we'll go for it, and hopefully ask some questions at the end as well. I can address some of those as well. So just to touch on the things that cropped up in the research that I've done. You know, for many years, we would hear from patients coming through our doors that their sleep was disrupted, they weren't sleeping well. And so that was a research question for us. You know, was it just that we had people there and talking about their sleep and we were asking about their sleep? Or is it something to do with the condition? Is sleep particularly bad in axial spondyloarthritis? So a few years ago, so 2017, we trawled through all the research that was out there, and just to see what it tells us so far. And yeah, it seems that people with axial spondyloarthritis report high levels of poor sleep. Okay, depending on what study you look at, it can be anything between 35% of participants or 90% of people with AxSpA report poor sleep. Importantly, it's worse than compared to the control group. So it's worse than the population norms. And so it's particularly bad in AxSpA, it seems like. Other little bits and bobs that cropped up in the research with the objective sleep monitoring. So in a sleep lab where you're hooked up to brainwave monitors and electrodes measuring muscle activity, these polysomnographs that we call them. That showed that in the AES subjects, those with ankylosing spondylitis, they showed lighter sleep, it was less efficient, and people just moved around a lot more overnight compared to the control groups. So why is this? And what are the things that correlate with poor sleep? So overwhelmingly, the biggest correlating factor seems to be levels of pain, back pain, and particularly pain at night. And that mirrors what people were telling us in practice as well, that they get woken up, particularly in the second half of the night, with pain and discomfort, and just that need to move around. Other things that popped up as well, particularly in our cohort in Bath with our cross-sectional study, so looking at what defined our poor sleepers, what other things were high in our self-rated poor sleepers. And we also saw that they had high levels of depression and anxiety, sort of lower mood, which, you know, you might think is not surprising really if you're not sleeping very well. But also we sort of think there might be a bi-directional relationship. So a bit like a chicken and egg, you know, if you're not sleeping well, that can cause levels of low mood, depression, anxiety. Equally, if you're anxious and have low mood, that can sometimes disrupt your sleep as well. So important to consider those psychological factors. And demographically, we also found, and this mirrors the general population as well, that women tend to sleep poorer. And also, as people age, they report poorer sleep as they get older. I think it's important to point out that it's not necessarily that people need less sleep as they get older. They just tend to get less sleep. I think there's a bit of a myth that as you get older, you just don't need as much sleep. That really isn't true. there's really very little variation between all of us. We all need between 7 to 8 hours sleep per night. Physiologically, there is not point something of the population that can truly manage sleep deprivation without any problems to their health whatsoever. It's very, very unlikely that you're that person. So it's probably that you maybe don't realise that you are sleep deprived. So what we do see that if you get under that 7 to 8 hours sleep per night routinely, and if you're actually getting a lot more than that, that's when we see a correlation between undersleeping or oversleeping and high levels of cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, and really all causes of mortality. Not to worry you so that you don't sleep, don't sit awake at night and worry about it, but really I think it's important to pay attention to that for all of us, but perhaps more so if you do have axial spondyloarthritis. Okay, so other little things that cropped up and that were hinted at in the research, that it was really just one study that showed that there is a higher prevalence of obstructive sleep apnea in the AS subjects over the age of 35. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's, and it sounds really scary, but it's not usually life-limiting. But if you just momentarily stop breathing overnight and then you'll just gasp and carry on breathing, and you might be completely unaware of this. Really, the only true and reliable measure is that the person sleeping next to you reports to you that, oh my gosh, you stopped breathing overnight, then it's usually quite scary for them. I think we typically think that it's people that snore have more sleep apnea, but really that's, from the research we looked at, that's not a good indicator of sleep apnea. So you may have it and you may be blissfully unaware. So it may be worth exploring that, particularly maybe if you wake up feeling particularly unrefreshed or groggy in the mornings. The research also hinted that there is a high level of restless leg syndrome in AS. That's where you get sort of jittery legs, really uncomfortable and just need to move those legs, and also more periodic leg movements, so jumpy legs. Also, there was another study showing there's a high level of leg cramps, so calf cramps overnight as well. With these things, there is a medical management you can go through with these. There's medications that can help with restless legs and leg cramps. And with sleep apnea, there's a little CPAP mask that you can wear overnight that gently blows air in and opens up the airways. So something to discuss certainly with your doctors. I'm a physio, so I always like to take a sort of a pragmatic approach. We're thinking of maybe some targeted stretches to your legs to keep those muscles really pliable and prevent perhaps leg cramps overnight. So you can experiment with that. So sort of addressing perhaps some of those causes, looking at things that you can do to make your environment and your body really primed for sleep. As we all, usually when I'm doing this stuff, I'm saying, right, unfortunately you have to make your life as boring as possible to make you conducive with sleep. But actually, for all of us, this is a really good opportunity because we're locked down. We can't do all the perhaps more exciting things that we'd like to. So maybe it's a good opportunity to try and get your sleep as good as you possibly can. So looking at addressing that discomfort. And this is not a scientific guide at all. This is really just from what the groups I've worked with have reported to me and things that people have experimented with. I would say on the whole, people say that if they have a firm mattress with maybe a soft topper on top, so you've got that firm base, so you're not kind of falling and slumping into an uncomfortable position, but you've got that little bit of cushioning on top to take off the pressure on your joints. That seems to be what people find most useful. Or there's a whole talk in itself about memory foam mattresses. People love them, people hate them. Someone that I know first described them as like felt like they're being eaten by a giant marshmallow when they're with a memory foam mattress. But I'll leave that up to you to experiment. But it's worth bearing in mind that mattresses can be really expensive. So toppers can be a really good way of finding middle ground. In terms of positioning, if it's your SI joints or your pelvis that's uncomfortable overnight, then a pillow between your knees can be helpful, but make sure it's between your knees and between your ankles. And that should help to align your pelvis. if it's just between your knees, actually it tends to compress the sacroiliac joint, so it can make you actually more uncomfortable. So try and get that pillow in between knees and ankles. And if you're a tummy sleeper and then it's your neck that wakes you up overnight, then sometimes a nice compromise can be putting a pillow here, so you're tilted into a quarter turn, so your neck isn't on full stretch overnight. That can make it a little bit more comfortable. And then preempting that perhaps discomfort creeping in the early hours. So try to make, and if you know that's what's waking you up, try to think of the areas that tend to wake you up, and then maybe give them a little bit of a stretch or a move around before bed, so that hopefully that tides you overnight a little bit longer. And even if it gives you that extra hour, for sure that could, you know, have quite a lot of effect on your general health and well-being as well. So give it a gentle move around it before bed. So this is a little picture of what we have always called supine lying. So it's lying on your back with your legs off the bed, edge of the bed at the back of your knees. And on the NAS website and on the YouTube site, it's called the 6 p.m. stretch. It's a really good demonstration of a nice gravity-assisted stretch that can gently stretch all those areas that might wake you up overnight. So you could try that, and of course also leg stretches on calf stretches for leg cramps, warm bath to help relax those muscles, and then thinking of the timing of your medication. People tend to take it first thing in the morning to get them up and going and functioning. Yeah, that can be really important, but maybe a little bit before bed to tide you over night a little bit more again. And then thinking of those psychological factors, and this may be more pertinent than ever. Sometimes just that mental load, where we're just thinking and processing things, so try and write those down, park it before bed, resolve any conflicts. Also some breathing exercises where you're just focusing on your breathing and not about the thousands of things on your to-do list. Be really helpful for that. Don't check your emails before bed. That's always a bad idea. And just try not to use those devices before bed as well. So reducing all lights, but particularly that blue light. So switch off your devices, get those little table lamps on instead. A cool room tends to be better. Invest in earplugs and eye masks, blackout blinds and blackout curtains if you need to. They're amazing. You don't realize how good they are until you have them. And try to build the association in your brain between being in bed and being asleep. So if your brain thinks that when you get into bed, okay, this is where I sit at the and stare at the ceiling for 30 minutes, trying to get to sleep and tossing and turning, it will learn to expect that. So if you can't sleep, get up, go and do something very boring, and then come back and try and go when you're a bit sleepier and try and go to sleep then. So hopefully you're trying to consolidate as well the time that you spent in bed to when you're sleeping. Okay, so just trying to kind of keep your eyes closed and trying to grab onto those extra 5-10 minutes at the end of the day into the night isn't always helpful. And it's getting to a daily routine. So your brain can expect, okay, we go to bed at this time, we get into bed and we go to sleep, and then we get up at this time. And then if you're awake, get up. Okay, and then you get that cortisol hit and you get up. And sometimes that can help also with fatigue. Daytime naps is a whole different topic in itself. I would say, I know people just sometimes need them to get through the day, but keep them as short as you can, 20 minutes. And ideally instead of 2 hours. Try and get active during the day when you've got natural daylight to help set that cycle as well. Hydrotherapy, yeah, really good for that as well. Look at what you're eating and drinking. Caffeine is the big culprit, okay? Trying to cut out those caffeinated drinks after lunch, I would say. You'd be amazed at the impact that can have. Also chocolate, that also has theobromine in it, which can suppress our need to sleep. Okay, so chocolate and caffeine are real culprits for that. Alcohol is great at getting you to sleep, but will wake you up overnight. And these are some of the online resources they are. Sleepio is NHS endorsed CBT program, so it's a cognitive behavioural app really. So it's getting you conditioned really, looking at all the different elements that might feed into poor sleep and trying to do that and address that systematically. Some people I know have done really well with that. Also, I think the wearable devices, so your Fitbits, other brands are available, that can be a really nice way of tracking your sleep. And if you can then map how you're sleeping and get that insight into your sleep, it can then help you try and improve that as well. So I'm a big fan of that. Further reading, so there's a Sleep Foundation, a Sleep Council. They're really good to give you more advice on sleep, much more than I've got time for today. And this book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, really interesting, I think. Difficult to stay awake sometimes while you're reading it, but he does say that's fine as long as you're getting sleep. So you have to give that a read. So I think, hopefully, we've got some time for some questions now.
Hi, Emily. That was brilliant. Thank you. Yes, we do have some questions. I've seen lots of chat going on as well about pillows. So, and I know people have been swapping sort of tips on pillows, but any pillow advice that you'd give?
So you're right, it's such an individual thing, and if you find a good one, you will take it with you everywhere. I have to say, I'm a big fan of the old feather pillows. Not great if you've got allergies, but because they're moldable, and it's often this gap here that can kind of, you kind of can sink into pillows, so you can kind of roll them up and squash them in there, or just having a roll towel to get into this space here to help align your neck overnight. There are memory foam ones, and I have to say, some people have said they've hated them to start with, but it's taken a while, and actually then once they get used to them, they've seen some improvement. So it might be worth giving that a go, but giving it a good go. Yeah, I like feather pillows.
Yes, and I think mattresses have also obviously come up, and I think earlier you were saying, you know, the memory foam mattresses, again, very individual, acquired taste. And I would probably just add to that, it's really good to buy a mattress from somewhere that lets you have it for a trial period, and you can return it if it's not for you.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, just jumping in. So with the memory foam as well, you know, often we do hear people reporting they get night sweats quite a bit with those, and because the memory foam is kind of plastic, sometimes that can not be pleasant with a night sweat. So sometimes like a natural fiber on top of that can be helpful.
And is there any evidence that mattresses should be hard or soft, or no? It's just individual, what suits everyone. Okay.
No, exactly. And it's just anecdotally what people have told us for many years, but I think it's worth experimenting to see if you can find one that suits you, because like, sometimes it can be a big game changer, actually.
And I can see there's a question about mindfulness. I don't know if you'd be aware, but any sort of evidence or your views on whether mindfulness could help with sleep and AS?
Oh yeah, I mean, really good evidence for mindfulness in terms of anxiety and depression and those elements, and just that mental processing. I think it's very individual. You know, if you sort of, I think first step is to work out for you what are the main things that are affecting your sleep. And if it's just that kind of your brain going a million miles an hour, or just if you think that's an element, it has to be only a factor, but sometimes an element, then yeah, having that structured, often they're focused around breathing. And I think that can be really useful. Absolutely. I think it's worth exploring, and they're inexpensive. We know they're generally good for you in terms of reducing your stress levels as well. And so that supine lying stretch I was showing as well, sometimes people do their breathing with that can help that wind down and relaxation before bed.
Okay, brilliant. And I can see there's lots of questions about medication on there, which I won't ask you as I did for Jane. I put her on the spot. So I think, probably that's a question best asked maybe of your GP or your rheumatologist, if you're happy with that. And then probably just the final question then, which someone's asking, Rebecca's asking, did you say someone had done an observational study in a sleep lab for people with axial SpA, and would you be able to sort of pop a reference for that in, maybe into the chat? Yes,
it's on my slides. I think it's a solid
one.
Oh,
okay, perfect.
At the bottom, I put them on the different ones. It's the ones that they report lower sleep efficiency and less deep sleep. So it's that one.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting study. Yeah.
Well, we'll be certainly sending all those out next week. So thank you so much, Emily. And I am going to invite Claire Jeffries and Jill Hamilton back onto the stage to sort of say thank you to everyone and to close.
Thanks, Sally. So we've come to the end of the afternoon. I don't know about you, but it's gone so incredibly quick. And I just wanted to say, to start with, thank you to all of you for joining and for being so interactive with us, for the fantastic questions. And as a liaise with NAS and try and answer some of the questions that we didn't get to, because there were loads, which is fantastic. So we're trying to get round to those over the next few weeks for you. So thank you for coming this afternoon. We hope you found it informative. I'd like to give a really big thank you as well to the AStretch committee for a fantastic job this afternoon, and for giving up their time this afternoon to be with us, and for the other physios that we had as guest speakers, to Phil and to our other physios who have been in the audience or on your tables and chatting with you as well. And finally, from the AStretch crew, I'd really like to thank NAS for giving us this opportunity to do this event with you and to try and support the patients, because that's what we desperately love to do, and we hope to try and do during the times that we find ourselves in. So thank you to NAS. And just finally, to all the patients with AXPA and AS, make sure you stay safe, obviously, but also keep active, keep moving as much as you can, okay, and look after yourselves. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Claire. And so just to echo really what you said, massive thank you to the AStretch committee, giving up their Saturday and time in advance as well, getting all this event organised. It really was a great event, so thank you very much. Just want to thank Sally as well for her lovely chairing. It was very good with the question and answer. Thanks for that. We will also be staying online just until 4:30. So some of the AStretch committee will be available if you've got any burning questions in the tables. And can I just finally ask Helen, Dave and Craig to come up onto the stage, please? Don't forget, everyone, while we're waiting for these people, don't forget to fill in your feedback as well. Helen will be sending out later on today, so don't forget. Yeah, so obviously, I'm sure you're all aware just how much work goes on behind the scenes, but massive thank you to Helen, who's the sort of major organizer for this event, and also to Dave and to Craig for their excellent assistance, as always, in the event going. So thank you very much. And that's it, really. That's all I have to say. And just have a lovely evening, everyone, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.